And we're live.
Right on. Thanks, Aaron. Welcome, everybody, to the Permissionless Software Foundation Technical Steering Committee. Today is July 7th, 2021. I am Chris Troutner. I founded the PSF with several other people. I also maintain fullstack.cash, and I'm coming to you from my boat, where I'm going to be for the next 2 or 3 months. So get used to this background.
Ooh.
Let's go around, do some quick introductions. Stoyan, you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Stoyan Jekov, and I'm helping with the JavaScript libraries for Permissioning Software Foundation, and I'm not on board, but but still it's very, very wet around because of the raining season. Okay.
In Japan, yeah.
In Japan, yeah.
All right.
Aaron, go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Aaron Shoemaker. I'm working with the Certification Development Program of the PSF to help people onboard people into working with cryptocurrency, the JavaScript libraries that you're developing, and helping to create new products for the PSF itself.
Nice.
Products and projects, I should say. You know, we've had a lot of discussion on that.
Yeah, that's been a topic of discussion, like an open source product versus an open source project. You know what I'm starting to realize now that I've spent so much time asking myself that question, is that now that I know what the rules are, I can break them. You have to know what the rules are before you can break them.
Yeah.
And definitely starting to explore this idea of, once you understand what the characteristics of a product is and what the characteristics of a project is and how they're different, then you can start to see how you can blend them together with cryptocurrency. But that's a tangent maybe we can get into later. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's dive on into the agenda. And, so I am doing this over a Wi-Fi hotspot with my phone. So I'm suspecting there might be some glitches. So Aaron, let me know how that goes, and we can adjust for our next meeting.
You seem fine right now.
Okay, perfect. Good. Okay, so this is the agenda for today. It's on, as always, our agendas are on GitHub under the Permissionless Software Foundation group in the TSC repository, which stands for Technical Steering Committee. And we store all of our agendas as issues so people can go back and look at the agendas later. We also include links to the Zoom meeting and the YouTube recording, as well as Odyssey, which we're going to try and post both the YouTube and Odyssey.
Yeah, I got to pull some of those. Get them posted.
So the agenda's typically split up into these three major sections of like the PSF core software, and there's a link here for anybody who wants to understand what we mean by core software. But just briefly, it's our BCH API, REST API, BCH.js, JavaScript library, and the Gatsby IPFS web wallet, which is the Gatsby theme for creating a web wallet app. And then there's other projects that we'll get into sort of like on an as needed basis. So let me just dive in here. It's going to be a pretty short agenda. So these meetings really are just a chance for us to celebrate our technical achievements over the last 2 weeks. And that's largely what goes into the agenda. And then after we're done with the agenda, we'll just open it up for roundtable technical discussion. So the only real big change with regard to the core software is that Daniel released a Postman collection. So Postman is an industry standard application for working with REST APIs. And REST APIs are largely what run the web today as we know it. And so this Postman is a really useful developer tool for playing with an API. It helps developers come up to speed on what resources are available in any given API. And so it's an open source repository. It has 4 files. In fact, let me just open that up and I'll walk through it. There's instructions here for anybody who wants more information, but there's the collection, which you would download Postman and then import this collection, and this is all the API calls that you can make to fullstack.cash or the BCH API, which you can run anywhere, but that's what fullstack.cash offers. And then there are 3 different blockchains that you can access. There's BCH, and then the testnet 3, which is often just referred to as testnet, and then the eCash blockchain as well. And so we support all 3 blockchains. And so you, depending on which one you are interested in, most likely the BCH one, you would load that environment variable. And then you can go through, and just like on fullstack.cash, we have the Explorer UI. This Postman collection is the same thing. You can check the balance of an address. You can retrieve the UTXOs for an address. You can query the current difficulty, mining difficulty. You can query the tip of the blockchain. You can query a specific block. You can query a specific transaction. Basically everything that we offer at fullstack.cash, which is access to a full node, an indexer, as well as SLPDB.
Very cool. Very cool. And Daniel, if you're listening, thanks for getting that developed, man. You are a rock star.
Yeah, he is a rock star. He's working really, really hard. And he just got back from vacation, so he's getting back after it. This is actually a pretty light day by Daniel's standards, or light couple weeks. Yeah, so really cool. I'm hoping that this Postman collection will help onboard additional developers. Definitely developers working at companies. This is sort of the industry standard, how a lot of companies share data. If companies like, hey, try our API, here's our Postman collection. That's kind of how a lot of those conversations go. So it'll be really nice to be able to offer that same sort of high quality standard tooling for other companies that want to get into the crypto space.
Awesome.
Next on the agenda is this sort of JSON RPC over IPFS and the pay to write database project, which is something I'm heavily focused on right now. And there's been a lot of conversations around clean architecture, this concept of clean architecture, which was developed by a guy who goes by the handle Uncle Bob, who's just sort of a well-known programmer. He's kind of an old boomer guy who's just been around so long that everybody pays attention to what he says, and he actually has a few good ideas. And this clean architecture was developed outside of the JavaScript world, and so it's become pretty popular in particularly the Java and C# and C++ communities. And I've been hearing more and more about it, and as a professional developer, I've struggled with a lot of the 2 main problems that clean architecture solves is managing complexity over time. So as you add new features to a program and it becomes more mature, and it tends to get more complex, and you have to have a good strategy for managing that increasing complexity. And clean architecture does that. And then the second big feature that it offers is protection against code rot, where it puts all the stuff that changes frequently on the outside of
We just lost Chris.
the architecture. Program goes in the middle. Yep.
Hey, Chris, you dropped for a second and we lost you at it. Put stuff, and you were doing this. You were spreading your hands out.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. You definitely let me know when that happens. The architecture puts the things that change on the outside, and the things that don't change very often go in the middle. And so it creates these nice segregations between the things that change and the things that don't, and so that helps manage this concept of code rot, of open source code that your app might depend on changing out from under you, and being able to sort of manage that. So those are the two main advantages that clean architecture brings, and it's really just a way of structuring your code. And anyways, I have a link here if people want to look into the clean architecture more deeply. I did a video just sort of presenting how I applied this to the pay to write database project, and I'm going back and I'm applying it now to some of the other boilerplate repositories that I use a lot. And yeah, I'll leave it there. There's definitely more info there for people who are interested in understanding clean architecture. And yeah, so there's a link here where I'm applying that to the IPFS service provider, and that's a boilerplate that will be intended for developers to basically fork and then customize for their own services. So if they want to sell access to a full node, or access to storage, or access to compute, or the main thing I'm going for is access to different blockchains. You'd be able to use this service provider and set up access to an Avalanche full node, set up access to a Bitcoin Cash full node, set up access to an eCash full node, and then deliver those services over the JSON RPC on IPFS. And so anyways, there's a long elaborate plan here, but yeah, so this clean architecture is sort of informing the design of all that. So I'll leave it there and encourage people to ask me questions if they're interested in any of this stuff. But yeah, it's a big focus of mine, and continuing to see steady improvements. And then to wrap this up, the second line here, I'll just point out, so the pay to write database it's an important concept, but in terms of like creating a product that people can play with, that's going to get incorporated into tourlist.cash. So the idea behind tourlist.cash is that it is a curation site for deep web websites. So anything like with a .eth domain name, or any IPFS-based website, or any Tor-based website can be listed there and put on even footing with a clear web website. And the way that this works, I also encourage people to check out this tourlist.cash code, because the way it works is Tourlist has its own local database, and then it attaches to this pay to write database. And then anybody can write anything to the pay to write database, but you can configure your local version of it with a webhook. This is a new feature that I just developed in the last week. So for instance, when someone submits a new entry to Tourlist, that entry will get added to the pay to write database, and then the pay to write database will generate a webhook, and which will trigger Tourlist to like read that new entry and add it to its own local database. And so the broad stroke here is that by using webhooks, you can write your own custom app that leverages this decentralized, censorship-resistant database, and you can ignore everything in the database that doesn't directly apply to your app through the use of this webhook. So only the entries going in the database that directly, conform to the standard that Tourlist is going to use, Tourlist will get notified by those through the webhook. And so this will let a whole range of different applications use the same pay to write database without stepping on one another's toes. And they can all leverage this censorship resistant quality to it without bogging down one another. So it's I don't know if I'm doing a great job explaining it, or the sort of profundity of this idea, but I'm just going to keep working on it, and
All right,
hopefully I'll have something to show.
let me ask some questions to kind of rephrase this. I think I'm getting where you're coming from. So there's you said about 2 or 3 big things right there. Number one, Tourlist is in. So you're kind of trying to develop the Google for the deep web search a little bit. Is that right? Like a way to curate these websites that are on the deep web, .eth, .bch, Stoyan, you helped develop some of that stuff, didn't you? And then and so here's a way for people to find this stuff. So that's awesome. And maybe the CIA will come fund us for that,
Well,
Just
so
kidding.
in terms of broad strokes, like to
Yeah.
zoom way out, I like to think this in terms of like the evolution of the internet. So there's Web 1.0, which was just static web pages, just HTML and CSS and JavaScript. And then Web 2.0 was largely defined by the ability let me stop. I'm going to stop sharing and switch back to I guess you can take care of that with your camera work.
Yep, you're fine.
So if Web 1.0 is defined as static web pages and Web 2.0 was defined as giving database access to those web pages. So all of a sudden that enabled Craigslist and Twitter and YouTube, where someone could essentially interact with a database over a web page. And that changed the entire landscape, because now one user visiting a web page could change the state of that web page so that a second user coming to the web page would have a different experience because the state had been changed by that first user. And so that's you could lump Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, MySpace, Craigslist, all those fall into that bucket. So what I see as sort of, there's a lot of talk about Web 3.0, which is being able to access the blockchain directly with a web browser. And that's neat, that's useful, but that's not the same thing as a database. Blockchains are like really shitty databases. And we really need a good database that has the qualities of a blockchain, that's censorship resistant, it achieves censorship resistant by being decentralized, and it achieves decentralization by being small and nimble and replicated many times by many people. So that's largely what I'm trying to. That's the problem I'm trying to solve with this pay to write database. And if this is the right direction to head, it's going to be very profound.
So as I'm hearing is the problem is that we need a database that's able to store more than the blockchain can store, but acts like a blockchain, right?
Right.
And the idea with the pay to write database is to provide some sort of barrier to entry to prevent spam from happening and preventing it from being unusable for everybody. And then we have the idea of once you've paid to write to this database and you're using this information for your web application, you can also get listed on fullstack.cash as an easy way to find your web application or your website, correct?
Correct, yeah.
All right. And then a step further is, because we don't want these applications to take in everybody's data from the pay to write database, we're talking about developing a way to just zero in on your data. It's just your data, that your web application, you're going to ignore everything else, and that's where these webhooks come in. Exactly.
Yeah. So by leveraging this new webhook feature, your app doesn't have to sit there and listen to all the noise going through the database. It can just get notified when something important lands in the database that your app should be aware of.
Yeah.
Before blockchain came, the idea about the Web3 was to be real time, and you also to have push, means not to just get something, but from the server you get pushes about some information. And this was the burn of the webhooks. Like in this case, our server will be displayed to database, but we don't want to every 5 seconds to get information from there. When something comes to it, it will push from there to your application. In this case, store list, right?
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So you don't need to have some loop which will check every 5 minutes or something.
Mm-hmm.
Your application is working all the time, and when something comes to the display to database, it will just send one post request, which is webhook, to your application, and you do what you want with the information. Show it or send email, whatever. but it's real time
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
also push like. So not
Yeah,
pull
exactly.
only. I think.
And there's a more elaborate plan here to improve decentralization. And I don't know if I don't really want to, like, we could talk about this for another half hour in terms of all this greater plan, but yeah, this webhook, which is a new feature as of this week, is a step down that road.
That's great. And to piggyback off of what you're saying, Stoyan, for the layman out there, it's kind of like the difference between going to check your mailbox every minute of the day to see if your mail is there, and then somebody going, "Hey, your mail's here," and you only have to check it once a day. Because a lot of the people watching this probably understand, but there's other people that probably don't understand that. Right now, it's just queries. Hey, is it there yet? Is it there yet? Is it there yet? Is it there yet? And the computer's doing this over and over and over. Has it changed? Has it changed? Has it changed? Kind of like when you ride in the car with your kids and they go, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet? We're not there." You know what?
Polling. That's the technical word.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it will be like the example will be you need to go every 10 minutes to the postal office to ask if you have some mails, or you can just be home and wait for the postman to come and deliver it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So webhooks is this next step down that path of decentralization, and you said we could talk a little bit more. Do we have more topics to go on here, or do you want to expand upon that?
Yeah, let's go ahead and wrap up these last couple things, because I went ahead and shared my screen again to show
All right.
the rest of the agenda, and we'll get through these, and then yeah, I've got a couple questions for Stoyan with the NFT stuff, which is why I left that at the end. But yeah, I'm happy to return back to this idea of the pay-to-write database, and I can expand on some of the other ideas that I have there. But yeah, just to wrap up the agenda, Gary Nadir pushed an update to the token bridge, which he's been working on to transfer SLP tokens over to the Avalanche blockchain and back. So he's leveraging this multiple op return feature that was added to Bitcoin Cash. And so the Avalanche side is pretty slick because they've got zero confirmation, and they can send a token and add a memo to the transaction in one transaction, which is what we needed in order to specify where the token should land on the other side of the bridge. And so it got a little clunky trying to implement those same features on the Bitcoin Cash side. We had to do multiple transactions because prior to November, you could only have one
op return.
text field in per transaction. Op return, yeah. One had to be used for the SLP tokens, and you had to generate a second transaction with an op return to specify what address you wanted the tokens to be sent to on the other side of the bridge. So now we can do that with a single transaction. And what's really nice about the way, because we can leverage this multiple op return feature that's been added to the Bitcoin Cash transactions, and what's really nice about the way that Gary implemented this is that it's I don't even think it's an environment variable. I think it's just automatic, where the bridge will check for multiple op returns, and if it finds it, it'll use it. But then if it doesn't, it'll wait for a second transaction to tell it where to send the tokens. And that means that we haven't broken backwards compatibility, which means we can use the same bridge on eCash. So we're planning on also building an Avalanche to eCash bridge, and so that we can transfer tokens across all three blockchains. So just a big shout out to Gary. That's a big improvement. And he added I think we covered this in the last meeting, but there's an AVEX CLI wallet, so a command line interface wallet for working with Avalanche. And there's already a command in there for sending tokens across the bridge from the Avalanche side to the Bitcoin Cash side. And I'm hoping that our next week I'll be able to announce that he's added a command for the SLP CLI wallet to send a token from the Bitcoin Cash side to the Avalanche side. We have a way to do that. We have a graphical user interface for doing that. but it'll be nice when we have the same command in the two command line wallets.
Oh, you do have a GUI for that, huh?
Yeah, it's just a temporary proof of concept GUI, but yeah, I'm happy to share it with anybody who wants to play with the token bridge and kick the tires. So it's just a fork of wallet.fullstack.cash, and what it lets you do, Daniel built it, and what it lets you do is request a test token from our faucet, and then send the token across the bridge to and specify an avalanche address that you want the token to be sent to on the other side.
Man, how cool. That is really neat.
Yeah, it's still things are, I have to emphasize again, like this isn't a general bridge for every token. You have to build a bridge for each token. But we're at a point where, you know, companies that are interested or developers who are interested in this tech, like we've got a lot of open source tech, proof of concepts, stuff to copy, stuff to hack on, and there's nothing holding anyone back from setting up a token bridge for their own token
Okay,
at this point.
so when you say you got to build a bridge for each token, right? Uh, does that, so if I create 1,000 tokens, like test tokens, does each one of those tokens need a bridge, or just that specific transaction or token ID need a bridge?
One bridge per token type. So
Okay,
like the spice token would need its own bridge,
so
and
once
the
it's
PSF token
established,
needs its own bridge.
it's good to go, and then we can continue to send tokens back and forth. It's just building the bridge.
Right, right,
Okay,
right, exactly. Which
so
is
what you're saying is there's
simply
not
a
a
matter of
generalized
forking the
bridge.
code and customizing it. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's no generalized bridge. Like I
yeah.
can't set up a bridge that will work for all tokens.
Okay. That makes sense. But that still is really cool, and it has a lot of functionality that we can go back and forth and back and forth with those tokens from BCH to
Yeah.
AVAX.
The other cool thing about this is that multiple people can set up a bridge for the same token. So like the spice token, for example, like you could set up a bridge and I could set up a bridge. And if one of our bridges stops working, that's fine because people can use the other bridge.
Ah, interesting. Now, I would suppose people would have to know where the bridge is or how to use the bridge specifically. Is there a way we can leverage the pay to write database and torlist.cash for a pseudo public bridge?
There you go. Now you're asking the right questions. This is why Tor list is important.
Yeah. He's freezing up.
Is it's a way to syndicate information about crypto resources that can't be shut down.
Yeah. That is cool because I could see that being very, very effective. And the, we'll get into this at the end, but I think there are so many more use cases for tokens than we even realize sometimes. And so I mentioned to you in a Telegram about I was talking to a farmer and a farm insurance agency at a wedding. And so I'll let you finish this up and then we can talk more about that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, speaking of use cases we haven't even thought of yet, finally, big shout out here to Stoyan, who submitted several new NFT commands to the SLP Cly wallet. I had a chance to play with them, and so I was able to create a group token, and then create a child token, and then burn that child token. And I can't remember what the fourth command was, but I played with all of them, and man, it made working with NFTs a hell of a lot easier. So thank you, Stoyan. Thank you very much. And I was actually hoping to get your thoughts, Stoyan, on. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing since that's the end of the agenda. So Stoyan, I was hoping to get your thoughts
Oh,
Oops.
he froze.
on how those commands. Okay, there you go. Can you guys? Am I back?
You're back.
Yes.
That's funny. I can see myself freeze on your copy. Sorry. The BCPJS library that you built, Stoyan,
Yes.
that's a lot. That's my understanding. I meant to play with this before our meeting, so I wasn't so ignorant, but unfortunately I am. That's used for making metadata, is my understanding of like encoding like a video or music file or a picture, and then that generates a transaction, and that would go into the document hash. Do I have that right? I feel like I don't have that right.
This BCP library, it's not doing any of this. It's a very simple parser. So if you compare it to the SOP libraries, it will be SOP metadata. What was this? MDM.
Yeah, metadata maker.
Yeah, so
MDM.
it's just getting one JavaScript object and making it in the valid what is this, like BCH like where is this, the thing that is going in the op return, this part of the data,
Just that SLP data.
yes, this. So it's just converting JavaScript object to string.
Oh, okay.
And in the reverse, getting a string from the database, it will convert it back to the JavaScript object. So you can.
Okay.
So it's just doing this encoding, and how we will use it. It's not this, just parser and builder on this string to object and back. And I made a small little other library, which was BCP extended library, which, for example, you can use this like in document URLs. You can put there the transaction ID and have this thing in the other transaction op return, or like I tried now this to be a second op return in the same transaction. But the BCP library itself, it does not do anything about the transaction or something. It's just this simple parser.
But yeah, okay, so I think that's where I was getting confused. So, but the output of the BCP.js, that's intended to go in the document URL.
No.
Right?
No, because it's intended to be just an op return if it's separate transaction, and then you put this separate transaction TXID in the document URL.
Okay.
So it was before the multiply op return thing. So you will have the main transaction with SOP token information, and inside the document URL you will have another transaction TXID, and this another transaction TXID, it's only media information. So this thing like op return. Or the latest stuff that we're trying now is you do not have this doc return with TXID, but to put this encoded information like a second op return in the same transaction. And then you can use this doc URL for what you want, pointing to another stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. Okay, so that's why I wanted to ask. So the workflow that I'm kind of envisioning, and maybe I'm making some mistakes here, I need to really actually do it for myself so I understand that I'm getting this right. But instead of doing a second op return, that data from BCP.js would essentially generate a transaction with its own op return. And then if that transaction ID, well, essentially I'm trying to tie the work that you've done with BCP.js and these NFT commands in the CLI wallet with the mutable data spec. And I think we're really close. We've basically there's like 3 or 4 pieces, and we just need to figure out how to put the pieces together. But we should be able to generate an NFT. I think we have all the tools right now at our fingertips to generate an NFT, which uses not the document URL, but the document hash to point to another transaction on the blockchain that then contains the probably the immutable data, which is what BCP.js would generate, which is like the thing that the NFT is about, which is like the media. but then also have this, following that mutable data spec, a way to add data over time, or additional changing data to the NFT that a wallet could pick up on. So you have like the token and a way to retrieve the media that the token represents, and a way to retrieve a changing state about the token.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible. Yes. With
I think we've got everything. It's just a matter of putting all the pieces together. If I have time, I'm gonna use the new Cli wallet commands to generate such a token, and I'll record it and show how all the pieces fit together.
Yeah, it's with this new Cli wallet, you can see the sources, but pretty much inside the create where before the create child call, you just need to add one payload part in your JSON configuration for the SOP token. So it will be name, what sticker or something, and there will be payload, and you put there what type of payload you want and where is it exactly on IPFS or something. And the library will do all this encoding for you, and it will create the second op return.
Great.
So it's all of this is ready. It's just in another branch, not in the master one.
Okay, this is in BCP.js.
Just let me check. I think it's not BCP, but SOP.
Yeah, I can get the info from you later too.
Yeah, I will send you then on chat.
I need to. I'm a little bit ashamed of my own ignorance with regard to the BCP.js. I meant to play with that yesterday, but I didn't get the time.
But recently, I thought it's, how to see, this BCP is cool, but I don't see many people using it. So I was thinking about to have something like NFT get media call or something, because we have already so many types of NFTs which are doing it differently. Like for example, this tokens straight on Django, they have a file on GitHub with URLs to the like main URLs to images. So you get the main URL from GitHub, and you add like exact image path to this main stuff. We have another one that are using document URL, but they just putting there the IPFS hash. Or we have another one that are putting there IPFS : / and the hash. So many variations that it's good to have one library which will just
which will do all that.
NFT, and it's returned where is the media. So you can and it can be extended in the future with BCP stuff, but even in the moment it's a lot of variants. So it will be good to have one get media call inside these NFT libraries, which will.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, because there's been such a time gap between the two ways of dealing with tokens that have become sort of the industry standard, which are very limited and permissioned. And then the way that I'd like to do it with this mutable spec, like maybe that's how we get out in front of this whole thing. If say like our organization wanted to own the standard for token icons, I think what you're saying is right. We could create a get media call which works with the pre-existing ways of doing token icons, and then we could add our mutable data way of doing it to try and encourage people to use this permissionless way of doing token icons, which can be updated over time, which those are two big features that the existing ways of doing it don't possess. But but it would allow us to have backwards compatibility, which is really valuable.
I like that idea a lot, being able to
because how to see, this BCP it's very experimental. It will not go soon inside the main NFT cause, but the
Mhm.
other one is the ugly reality. There's already a lot of NFTs created in very different ways, and the wallets just need to display them and create them. So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
Yeah,
good to have this.
another question for you, Stoyan. I have not yet had a chance to look too deeply into NFT.storage, but do you, I think you've looked at it, and do you think that it would be possible to leverage that in a BCH NFT in terms of storing? My understanding is that NFT.storage is a way to upload like artwork for an NFT and have it saved to Filecoin and IPFS.
I think it can be used for everything. It's very how to see, very. It's just combining IPFS and Filecoin. How you use it,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they specified. It's just one. They have a JavaScript library, so you can
Mm-hmm.
use it in any of your project. So what you
Okay.
store on NFT storage, it's not NFT media only. I think it can be pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
I need to check again, but I think it was just one JavaScript library which allow you to access the API, and it will store everything on IPFS and Filecoin. From what I remember,
Okay.
I need to check.
That
Maybe.
sounds right with my limited knowledge as well. I actually had a chance to talk with Mikhail Rogers, who I think is the project manager for NFT.storage. But yeah, I didn't realize he was kind of heading that up, and so now I really want to play with it.
Okay. Did you check this ceramic stuff that we was talking? Ceramic.
I've been trying to follow it. Yeah, they just launched their main net, and so ceramic. I'll give my understanding of it, and then you guys please correct me if you have additional understanding. But my understanding of ceramic is that it's data streams. It's all about mutable data streams on IPFS, which has so far been, hard to do because it's an immutable file system, and it's such a kind of a complex idea. It's hard to understand in and of itself. But one of the features that they've spun off with this technology is IDX, which is a decentralized identification system, and that's been my main like focus with ceramic, is this idea of a decentralized ID, or a DID, and being able to, an idea is more than just like, I mean, the obvious canonical use case is like social media identification, like your Facebook profile or your Twitter profile. Being able to do that in a decentralized way that's not tied to any one specific like service provider like Twitter or Facebook, that you have full control of, that you can revoke. That's interesting to me, but that's just like one thing that you can do with this ceramic technology, and it's very complementary to the pay to write database, and I need to spend more time understanding exactly where the overlap is between what ceramic is doing and what I'm trying to do with the pay to write database. Theirs is really complex, whereas the pay to write database that I'm doing is much simpler. So but anyways, that's the extent of my knowledge.
No, I mean, I don't remember everything because I briefly look on them, but maybe they allow several like backends to be not only IPFS but something else. So it can be interesting to combine their streams with pay to database like a backend.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's possible, but why not?
Yeah, and well, so the idea of the pay to write database and the JSON RPC over IPFS, it leverages this core concept of pub subscribe channels, and that's what lets like a bunch of random IPFS nodes to on the fly form a sub network around their pub sub channel. And that's essentially how the JSON RPC over IPFS works. And what I need to understand about Ceramic is sort of how they're doing that coordination layer. I'm sure pub sub channels are involved, but I think there's a lot more going on there than just pub sub channels. In terms of how everybody talks to one another and how everybody finds one another, that whole coordination layer. But my understanding is basically their protocol is a way for you to take just about any piece of data anywhere and feed it into something else. So yeah, I definitely need to understand how that works and how that could fit in with the pay-to-write database.
I got their stream lifecycle up from their GitHub right now, and
nice.
So I think this gets into a little bit about what you're wondering about. So I did pop the blog, the Ceramic Network blog post into the chat on YouTube for anybody that wants to check that out. Yeah, it looks like they got everything laid out pretty much right here. So, and I'm sure they get into more detail in their code.
The other, one of the other sort of macro ideas I have around the pay-to-write database is there's like one root pub sub channel, but then anybody can create another pub sub channel, so like a subnetwork of a subnetwork, and it's pretty simple in its concept. I mean, it really is just that your IPFS node starts listening to another pub sub channel, and then that way it can form a subnet. So like say TorList, if they wanted to have some secondary data communication or secondary database going on, all the IPFS nodes that care about that could join that pub sub channel and share that data. And that seems really obvious to me, but I don't think that's what Ceramic did. And so I need to understand what they did and why they did it that way.
Right on. Yeah, I'll have to take a look at that too. So, and then torlist.cash right there.
Maybe you can put also the NFT.storage for people who want.
Yeah, let me go to that right now.
It was the previous. We started from there and just
right.
talk about too much other stuff, but yeah, this
NFT.storage,
yeah,
and I'm gonna pop these into the chat for people. And then torlist.cash.
I should point out torlist.cash is not functional right now. It's really just a placeholder. But like the front end's essentially done. It's just not wired up to the back end, so it won't really do anything.
Well, I'm sorry for jumping the gun there.
This in the beginning there was this NFT.storage, and during this near blockchain marathon, just near.storage pop-up. Maybe it's the same guys, but I was start to thinking, okay, can be BCH.storage created? Maybe we can help them with this one, and then it will be good to have like ready storage on the BCH blockchain. Maybe just ready JavaScript call to storage on this stuff.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it looks like.
Yeah, I need to look into it. I mean, so there's the file, there's IPFS file hosting available at message.fullstack.cash, but it doesn't have any tie to Filecoin. And so yeah, I want to understand how NFT.storage is doing it, and my understanding it's a free service, and sort of see if what would be better to leverage. Like, should we take the time to add Filecoin uploads to message.fullstack.cash, or should we just leverage, the free service at NFT.storage, and if can we get some sort of like a CID that we can just add to token metadata and call it good? Like, do we even need to inject anything Bitcoin Cash specific into this process?
Yeah,
it's free, but maybe only for now, until they gain enough like momentum. So it's like with most libraries free just in the beginning. So yeah,
Yeah.
maybe it
You
will be
know,
not
I
so free
see they
soon.
have a pinning service here. So like, but my question is, so like right here they got this pinning service, but again, yeah, is it free? Is it free for now? How long will it be pinned? Where are they pinning it at? I don't know. You know,
Mhm.
so they've just a command line to pin your artwork, but you know, I'm not sure where they're pinning it, and are they going to get tired of pinning it one day and then it's down? You know, I don't know those. I would.
You can maybe. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say I would suppose that if they're trying to say this is for the long haul, they'd be they're trying to do a permanent type of thing, but you know, I'd have to look into it. So
You can check maybe our wave also. It's also interesting. Uh, just a second.
our
Yeah.
wave,
Have they gotten Arweave?
our
Have they
weave.
gotten onto the NFT bandwagon?
Mhm. It's not only it's mostly NFT, but it's like a blockchain dedicated to data. It's a very, how to see, very complex idea. And this near protocol, they're using it a lot for them NFTs. But if you look on their data, it's just a data with a JSON metadata attached to it. But you have like a transactions for everything. So it's like database blockchain.
Hmm.
Pretty interesting. And they're using it for a lot of stuff like this Git stuff. So not only NFT related. It's like a data
Hmm.
blockchain. Pretty interesting ideas there.
Yeah, I definitely need to spend some time checking these guys out. I've heard of them, and I've heard of them at a high level,
Mhm.
and I know that there's a lot of skepticism around their business model of the sort of pay once, store forever model.
Yeah.
And again, we've kind of talked about this in previous
Yeah.
uh, meetings. I'm curious about their ability to restore data if say if like redundancies. It really comes down to redundancies and repairability. I know Filecoin has a really good system for that, or at least the PowerGate, which was developed by Textile, has a really good system for that. And I need to understand what that looks like in the Arweave blockchain.
Mhm.
You know, how do they guarantee that the data sticks around forever?
Yeah. There was previous week something about what was the name? Singularity or something on Twitter. It's interesting. I think it's non-government organization, but they are getting like interviews with, for example, uh, the post-war like refugees, stuff like this one, and they putting all of these documents uh, on
Oh,
some kind of
Starling,
storage.
the
Which one?
Starling project.
Yes, this one. Interesting. What kind? I think they're using some of this
They're
the
using Filecoin,
Filecoin or
and
something. Yeah.
yeah, and that's a fascinating project because it's large chunks of data that need
Mhm.
to be stored for long periods of time.
Yeah. Video.
And
Like.
right, and the way they're doing it, I mean, I don't know any of the details, but at a high level, the way they're doing it is there's all these authentication steps that they're doing so that in 10 years from now people can't go back and say, oh, that's fake, somebody
Mhm.
faked that. They're doing all these steps to like time, like be like, this is a real person who existed at this moment in
Yeah,
time,
yeah,
and here's some sort of cryptographic proof of that, and the video was made at this time, and here's the cryptographic proof to show that nothing was edited after the fact.
yeah. Mhm.
And so it's all of this authentication. So there's like several really big ideas there. There's the size of the data because it's mostly video.
Yeah.
There's the permanence over time. which implies repairability. And then there's this sort of authenticity metrics that they're using in terms of like to prove that these people really existed. It's not a deep fake, that the video is created at a specific, point in time, and that you can prove it, and that you can prove that nothing's been altered since that time. So a lot of really important concepts coming together there.
Yeah. But
That-
it will be interesting if these ideas can be used for more general storage, because like we talked already several times, storage in the moment is very, very hot topic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We do want
Yeah,
to
that's
give
one of
a
my.
shout out
Go
to Collins Wachira in the chat. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
Yeah. Good to have people watching. I always assume this is just recorded and people watch it later.
yeah.
Yes, sorry to
But
interrupt your guys' flow there. I just wanted to give that shout out before he leaves the chat. So
yeah. The Starling project is pretty interesting. I actually tried to use their software, and that's what got me into using Textile, because they have this really slick command line app, but the way one of my main gripes with the way Filecoin's been rolled out is that they didn't want it to be used maliciously. So they have all these gatekeeping, things in there. Like it's really hard for just some random person to put a random piece of information on Filecoin. It's getting easier, but when they first launched the mainnet, it was like 10 times more expensive for someone to do that than unless you were like you found an approved miner and you were like an approved node, and there's all these permission gatekeeping hoops you have to jump through to upload large pieces of data to the network, which the Starling project had all those boxes checked. And that was the problem I ran into trying to use their software, is I didn't have any of those permissions. And so it just like stopped working. It just wouldn't work. And so that's why I've been going through and working with the Textile guys, because they have a less permissionless, and things have gotten better. The Filecoin network has hit certain milestones where they're starting to drop off the all the permissions. It's now like a miner can just come and start offering storage, and you don't have to have any sort of previous permission, and some random person can just find a miner and upload data to them. And it's starting to actually work the way it's supposed to work.
very cool. Very cool.
It's really good for the big data, but what about these small pieces that we were talking about, like icons for the NFTs? Which is what is in the moment like the best storage for these small pieces?
Well, my understanding in terms of Filecoin is to use Textile buckets. So textile.io is the company, and they have a JavaScript, or it's actually a command line app and a JavaScript library for working with their buckets. And so a bucket is similar to like an S3 bucket, like an Amazon.com bucket. So you create these buckets, and then you put data in the bucket, and then you push the bucket to their server, and then it's pinned and it's hosted on IPFS. And now there's one extra command that you can add that then pushes the bucket to Filecoin. And so I think for someone who just like a JavaScript developer or even a non-developer, because you can just use their command line app, if someone wants to just get a random small piece of data uploaded to Filecoin and IPFS, I think that's the easiest way to do it. It's all free right now. They give you like several gigabytes,
but is it
for free.
Is it the Filecoin the best for this kind of stuff? Like, is there something easier?
Well, what's nice about Filecoin is that the CID, the content identifier for a piece of content, is the same on Filecoin as it is on IPFS. So the idea is that you pin it to IPFS, and then it's available just like any other thing on the internet that you could download. But then if it's not pinned, if that somebody, there's no copy on the IPFS network, it's essentially backed up to Filecoin. And so it's like a single command to just transfer that data from Filecoin to IPFS, and then make it immediately available again.
And it looks like
That's how it's supposed to work.
looks like Ceramic is actually working with these guys here.
Yeah, Textile and Ceramic and Filecoin, they're and Slate, they're all I think they're all Silicon Valley companies, and they're all very tightly working together with one another.
Huddle, I think that's a Nebraska company. If I remember right. I may be wrong on that one. I know there is one out of Nebraska that deal with game footage for football teams and sharing that. So, well, that's cool.
Cool.
And again, the link for that is in the chat. So, Collins, you can check that out.
The the Arweave guys have been, I just haven't, I've been so happy. I really gotta say, like, I'm not trying to bash the Arweave guys. I'm just ignorant. And I've had such a good experience with the Textile company, and they have a Slack channel, and you can go there and ask them questions, and there's always somebody there to help you work through it. So I've definitely had my moments of stumbling with their software, but their documentation is so good, and their command line app works flawlessly. And then the few times I've run into an issue, there's been an actual human to talk to. So I got to say, their execution has been excellent.
Well, good. And we're not trying to bash them, but if you think we are, come at us, bro. Just kidding. Just messing around. All right,
guys. Well, it's been about an hour. We should probably wrap this up. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to cover before we do that?
Well, I was talking. Stoyan, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You want to go ahead?
No, I was thinking, just to go back to the initial stuff about the Postman. We would be like good to have Swagger, if you know Swagger, to have like a Swagger description of the this BCH API that we're using, so the people can create clients in other languages too, not only JavaScript. But if they have this Swagger description, they can create like I don't know, Python or Go or something else.
Yeah, that's actually the next thing on the list. Is I saw what Ava Labs did with their Postman collection, and it was really good execution. So I just basically tried to copy that. And then I've had mixed experiences with Swagger. I know that's another one of these like very standard tools that the industry uses. So I think that might be the next step. I was not aware though. So you're saying that if we created a Swagger whatever document for our REST API, that would help people in other languages leverage our API?
Yes, because how to see, the Postman is it's a usual like a web client for REST interfaces, and with this like a small JSON file that you creating, you how to see, help people to use this web client. But Swagger is more general. Like it's again, I think it's JSON based. But when you describe some API, there's a lot of libraries in different languages to create from this kind of JSON Swagger description client in some language. So I think most of the REST API heavy projects, they have a Swagger file, so they don't need to create clients in any language. They just give it to the people. Okay, use this new language, create from this Swagger a client, and use our API. So cool. I think it will be pretty good to have this one for the, like already this is a very good first step, Java JSON file with the API calls. So from it should be pretty, how to see, obvious to create a Swagger file, which will be the next abstraction level. So to be used not only through this web Postman, but you can create clients in any language. So pretty good, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sold. I think that that's definitely on the docket now.
So if you want, maybe Daniel will be the best to tell us, is it worth it? How to see? Is it doable? No, it's doable, but how to see? Is it good one to have this, or because we're thinking now about the how to see, attracting production how to see, people who use these libraries in production. That's why Postman.
Yeah.
So Swagger is pretty.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. If we want to attract this kind of people, it will be a good step. I think this one, but maybe Daniel can tell us more. Like, is it like doable at all?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. That's why I had Daniel do the Postman one, was for exactly those reasons. And I remember at the time I was like, well, should we do Postman first or do Swagger first? And because I was pretty sure that I wanted to do both. And yeah, no, I think that's the next obvious step, because that's the idea is these documents like Postman and Swagger, they're intended to make it, to lower the barrier of entry for companies to leverage fullstack.cash, but beyond just fullstack.cash, they apply to BCH API. So anyone who wants to run their own local copy of BCH API can also leverage these Postman docs, and it would be the same thing for Swagger. So
Nice.
yeah, it's a good call.
Nice.
Yeah. This was, I was just couldn't ask in the beginning, so now when we're near to the end, it was nice to ask one time.
So the only other thing I had was, I was talking this weekend to a farmer and then a farm insurance agent, and we were talking about the idea of using NFTs and tokenizing crop, by the bushel, and then being able to sell that crop to a farm insurance agent at a certain price. So it's kind of like options, but without centralization, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then that farm insurance agent is then able to sell the crop to large companies like Cargill, ADM, and stuff like that, who would normally be buying this crop, but you are solving the insurance problem for the farmers themselves, and then the insurance agency can either make or lose money depending on how much the crop goes up or down in the future. So they were both like, this is a great idea, and we could do this and not have centralization of futures. Essentially, it's like a decentralized futures market. So I just thought that was a cool idea.
Yeah, it is a good idea, and I've heard a lot of people talk about this in the past. And I think that I mean, this is really the value prop of tokenizing, not logistics, supply chain. This is a supply chain. This is what they talk about when they talk about tokenizing supply chains. This is what they could do, and the challenges there are less technical and more regulatory. It's just the fact that everything's new, and that you're talking about coordinating several large companies together, and so there's regulatory issues around there. It's not as simple as like Alice and Bob want to transact in a it's not that simple. But the real risk, the real financial threat that I think these tokens really mitigate is rehypothecation, where say the farmer, he estimates what he's going to grow, and so he gets a bank loan, and then that bank loan, that could get, basically you end up in a situation frequently where the crop is oversold, and particularly in the case of futures, this is rarely a problem, because people who buy those futures, they don't actually want physical delivery of the goods.
Yes.
They're just trading them. It becomes a financial instrument at that point. And so this rehypothecation is rarely an issue, because somehow it just magically works out somewhere. You see this a lot with the gold market right now. The gold market is heavily oversold. It's a not so secret that there's way more paper gold than there is actual physical gold. And if everyone actually like demanded physical delivery of their gold futures, we'd have a huge problem. But that's probably never actually going to happen. So, but this rehypothecation, this happens all the time, and it's a big threat for Bitcoin, for all the cryptocurrencies. If they were to become financialized, you'd have these derivatives or these synthetic Bitcoins, and suddenly all of the synthetic Bitcoins floating around there would very soon become much more than 21 million. So yeah, so I mean, you're onto something, but there's just so much more to it than just the actual tokenization.
Well,
But in a
I definitely
situation where
agree.
you could keep things small and local, it's a great solution.
Well, I definitely agree. I think, though, when you're talking about coordinating things with Cargill or ADM, a large company, they're already coordinating with the farmers, right? So how these companies work is, and sometimes they're middleman companies, like a company like Gavilon, that will own silos, and the farmer brings their crop to the silo. They pay the farmer for the crop, and then they sell the crop to a processing plant, right? That
Yeah.
already happens. So
That would work really good in that
so what we're
scenario.
talking about is, with tokenization, I'm the farmer. I tokenize my future yields, sell them to the insurance company, the insurance for the money now. That's basically my crop insurance. The crop insurance company now takes that and say the price per bushel goes up $2. They've made a profit, which is what they're trying to do. I I'm still responsible for delivering my product to the silos. That's part of what I sold with the tokens. Like, that's part of the price, is me delivering that, housing it and delivering it. And then the insurance company is simply selling the tokens to Cargill and ADM. And now you have this track thing, and you've really eliminated a lot of noise in the transactions that go on with the crop insurance and the banks and everything else. And then Cargill and ADM can track each one of those bushels and see, okay, yeah, we bought 100 tokens, 100 bushels and each bushel is a token. We bought 100 tokens from X insurance company. We see 100 bushels come in. We're good, And now they have a way to track that. And especially with something like the pay to write database, now here's an easy logistical way to track all that sort of stuff. And right now they're probably paying for that. They're probably either paying for their own data storage, or they're paying Amazon or Azure, for some sort of cloud service VPN, and all the data is not going into the same database sometimes, and I'm sure there are logistical nightmares going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think the incentive there lies with the insurance company, who is probably the people who have to pay if this whole existing system, it's based on trust. A lot of it's based on trust. There's accountability and there's auditing, but yeah, tokenization and what you described would make the system as it works today just less risky. There'd be less trust involved. The bookkeeping would be much more straightforward, and then you could open the door to all these secondary markets, which could improve profitability. And it sounds like the company that's could stand to benefit the most there would be the insurance company.
Oh yeah, totally. I think it's a way for the insurance company, because right now it's very ethereal. If you're an insurance company, you come to me and you say, I've got X amount of acres of land, I expect this much yield. Let me take out an insurance policy. And I say, okay, I'll give you this insurance policy. And I really have nothing beyond the money you're paying me, right? I can't do anything more with that. Maybe I can sell the policy to somebody else. That's it. But the idea that, all right, you as the farmer tokenize your crop, the futures of your crop, that's what I sell to the insurance company. Me as the insurance company, I paid you money for that. You're good. Now I have the tokens for this crop, and I can sell that and make money off of that. And so it's not just, oh, I've already paid you out. Like my job as an insurance agent is already done, you know, at that token transaction. And now I become, instead of the farmer dealing with the giant corporation, which is how it is right now, all the individual farmers deal, or the farmer collectives deal with the big, huge corporation. Now it's the insurance company dealing with the big corporation. And so you might be able to get a little leverage there, in a sense. You as an insurance company are probably a lot larger than an individual farmer or a farming collective. And so you would have another dynamic in the economy there where they can say, all right, yeah, we have 1 million tokens representing 1 million bushels of corn. Cargill, let's make a deal. Let's how do we do this? You know,
I
sort of
like the idea of a farming collective, like basically starting their own. That could be disruptive. That's like
Yeah.
a bunch of farmers getting together with one tech guy who understands tokens to sort of do all this with tokens. It would eliminate a lot of the risks, which is why the insurance company exists.
Yeah.
You'd also have to have a good way of standardizing a bushel of wheat or whatever. I'm sure those systems already exist, so it's not like you'd have to invent the wheel there. But
it will be interesting also to attach geo information to these tokens, so you can sell this after this to transportation company. If they know which of this stuff is coming from where, they can organize their trucks or something to get this stuff.
Totally.
Well, that's the whole idea behind supply chain is like, if you buy a diamond, if it was tracked through the supply chain, then you could, with absolute certainty, like guarantee that this is not a blood diamond, that it didn't come from, somewhere.
Well, I like what Storian's saying.
It ultimately depends on the trust. Yeah.
I like what Storian's saying, and he's saying it a little different. He's saying that if my farmer out in Idaho tokenos a crop of potatoes, right? And then geo information is included on where those potatoes are, as the supply chain guy knows how far I got to go to get those potatoes, as opposed to potatoes.
And you can sell this information to the transportation company.
Yeah.
So you tell them, okay, you have like 100 tokens coming from here, so they know, okay, we need 100 trucks to go there or something. It's a very valuable information.
Because you could write a program essentially that does this instead of having one guy analyzing and going, all right, I got potatoes from Idaho and I got this and I got, I got corn from Nebraska and I got wheat from Kansas, But then you get more centralized. You're like, all right, Lawrence, Kansas, I got this much wheat in Lawrence, Kansas. Here's my distribution point. This is how far it is. This is the price of diesel fuel for the trucks. This is how much the trucks can hold. And all that information goes into going, all right, this is how much it's going to cost me to get my product from the farm to the manufacturing plant or to the market, right? And that's the idea with geos.
Yeah. And if the distribution centers, every distribution center is a wallet. When you send some real stuff to distribution center, you send also the NFT. So you can track after this which wallet it crossed. So you have also the whole route which this crap comes from.
You could even
not
have
only the
trucks,
initial geo information.
You could even have the trucks or the trains themselves be a wallet, so that when you go
but
from
it will be too detailed.
So that you go from the farm and then I've transported from the farm to you, scan, the tokens are transferred to the train. So if I scan, I know the token, the product is on the train, and then they're transferred to the manufacturing plant. And then another thing I'm thinking about is you could also include information on how the crop is grown. What type of crop is it? Is it an heirloom crop? Is it GMO free? Is it what type of pesticides were used on it? Stuff like that, because this becomes valuable information to the end consumer. And then rather than having, and as you go and make the product, what's great about this for the manufacturer is I don't have to necessarily list this entire thing on the back of the product, because right now you got limited space on a package. You want to advertise your product, and then you have limited space for information. Well, now once you make that, if it becomes tokenized and that information exists somewhere, and the person can scan that with their phone and read everything they want, like, here's the farmer that made it, here's how long he's been in business, here's the type of crop it is, here's where it's from. Me as a consumer goes, oh, cool. I really like to support stuff that's grown near me. I think that's a good idea because the money goes back into our ecosystem and it makes us more profitable. And so being able to go, okay, this is like, maybe it was distributed here, but it was produced way over out west, or maybe it was produced in China and shipped over here. I don't necessarily want to buy that. And then I look at it, I scan and look, oh, this was produced, just 30 miles from here in a farm. And I'm like, yeah, I'm up for that. And then maybe there's even some more information towards, like, that farmer also has farm eggs that you can go to his farm and get farm eggs, So now it goes into that farmers collective thing we're talking about, where now you get into, because the product has more information, now these farmers and these producers have more channels to distribute their product.
Yeah, I love the idea of giving the consumer like just sort of like one address, and then if they choose to sort of, almost like a block explorer, dig into like where this product come from, who touched it, like where it all, like you could have a way to assemble all this data naturally, and then not force it on the consumer, but allow a consumer to sort of follow the breadcrumb trail. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Pay-to-write database could be a good solution for this.
Well, actually, this mutable data, we really need to wrap this up, but just to jive on what you said real quick, that mutable data spec for tokens, we've talked about the trust agent where only the person creating the token has the private key to update the mutable data, but other people, like say in the supply chain, like scanning a QR code on a crate somewhere, that could send data to, it would just generate a transaction which could attach data to information about the token. You don't necessarily need that person's permission to add data. It's just that, like, you're clearly defining official information and then like supplementary information that anybody can add simply by sending like a dust output to the certain address, that then you can follow the breadcrumb trail to additional information. So
yeah,
but yeah, let's wrap this up, you guys. It's been a great meeting, and it's always lots of good ideas in this meeting. We'll have another technical steering committee meeting in 2 weeks, again Wednesday, same time,
and ComCom meeting next week. And thank you for those in the chat that were watching. We'd love to hear from you again. And, just reach out in Telegram or through Carrier Pigeon. So,
yeah. And if anybody wants to get on to the Telegram channel, which I recommend you do, go to psfoundation.cash, scroll to the footer in the bottom, and there's a link to the Telegram channel right there.
And I'm activating the lower third for that right now, so you can see that. psfoundation.cash, and there's your name there, Chris, as the head.
That's the website. Yeah, go there, scroll to the bottom, hit the Telegram icon, and that'll take you to our public Telegram channel where we can continue this conversation.
All right. Until next time, we'll see you guys later.